He stood barefoot on the cold tile floor, staring out at the quiet restaurant he had inherited, built, and then nearly destroyed without ever realizing it. The morning sun pushed through the dusty windows of Maggie's table, casting long shadows over the worn-out booths and the kitchen that once smelled like home. Aaron Caldwell had returned after nearly 5 years away, years spent chasing new ventures, trusting the team to carry on his grandmother's legacy. But now, the heart of the place felt like it had stopped beating. The walls still stood. The menu was still the same. But something deeper had died, and it had not happened overnight. It had happened in silence, one ignored detail, one overlooked face at a time. And as he leaned against the counter his grandmother once wiped down with a rag and a prayer, he whispered, "I almost lost it all." But what truly shattered him was what he saw when he looked closer. Not the cracks in the ceiling, not the faded paint. It was the people, the way they moved, the way they spoke to each other, or worse, how they stopped speaking at all. Aaron Caldwell never planned to run a restaurant. He grew up watching his grandmother, Maggie, wake up before sunrise every morning, hands already busy, apron tied tight, humming to old gospel songs as she stirred pots and kneaded dough. Maggie's table was not just a diner, it was her second heartbeat, a place where people came as strangers and left feeling seen, fed, and forgiven. Aaron spent summers wiping down tables, pouring sweet tea, and listening to the laughter that echoed through the booths. But like most young men, he believed his future was elsewhere. He left town after college, chasing corporate success in Atlanta, first in real estate, then in tech, always climbing, always running. When his grandmother passed, she left the restaurant to him. He came home, made some updates, hired a team, and handed off day-to-day operations to people he thought he could trust. Then he disappeared again, thinking love could be outsourced if the brand stayed intact. He was wrong. Years passed. The soul of Maggie's table started slipping away. Aaron heard whispers, a drop in regulars, complaints about the staff, tension in the kitchen, but he ignored them. Until one night, sitting alone in a hotel room, he pulled up a review from a long-time customer. Just 5 words, "It does not feel right anymore." That was the moment everything cracked. Aaron packed a bag and drove through the night. When he walked in before dawn the next morning, the silence hit him like a punch. The laughter was gone. The pride was gone. The people, his people, looked tired, disconnected, and cold. So he made a decision. He would stay. Not as the boss, not with announcements or speeches. He would go undercover, posing as a consultant, just another guy observing from the sidelines. He needed to see the truth up close, without filters. Because if there was any hope of saving Maggie's table, it would not come from fixing the kitchen. It would come from understanding what broke in the people who worked inside it. Aaron showed up the next morning in plain clothes, clean jeans, a navy windbreaker, and a hat pulled low over his brow. No briefcase, no clipboard. Just a notebook in his pocket and a quiet resolve in his chest. He introduced himself to the team as Cal, a friend of the family sent to help assess the restaurant's operations. The staff nodded without much interest. Most of them had seen a rotating door of helpers before. They figured he would be gone by next week, and nobody asked many questions. Aaron sat quietly in a back booth by the kitchen window, watching. It took less than 15 minutes for the cracks to show. Morning rush began with a clatter of pans and sleepy footsteps. Tiana, the lead waitress, moved like her shoes were made of bricks. She took orders with a forced smile, barely made eye contact, and forgot to greet 2 customers entirely. When a regular named Mr. Lewis asked for his usual coffee and pecan waffle, she just pointed toward the back and said, "Someone'll get to it." No one did, for 12 minutes. In the kitchen, Chef Reggie barked orders with the short fuse of a man who had not slept in weeks. His apron was stained, his tone sharp. When one of the newer line cooks, a timid kid named Julian, asked a question about plating, Reggie rolled his eyes and said, "Figure it out or get out." Julian said nothing. He just nodded and kept his head down. Then there was Kendall, the dishwasher turned assistant manager, who seemed more interested in his phone than in anything else. He spent more time behind the register than managing, and when customers asked about missing orders, he shrugged and blamed the kitchen. The whole place had a weight to it. No music played in the background. No laughter floated from the booths. No one said "welcome in" or "how's your day going?" The walls were still the same warm yellow Maggie had picked years ago, but somehow they looked dimmer now. The heart of Maggie's table, the why behind the biscuits and gravy, was gone. Around mid-morning, Aaron saw a particularly rough moment, and older couple came in, probably in their 70s. They waited at the front counter for a solid 2 minutes before anyone noticed. When Tiana finally looked up, she let out a sigh that might as well have said, "What do you want now?" She took their order without writing anything down, then forgot it 5 minutes later. When the husband politely asked about their food, Kendall rolled his eyes and muttered, "It's not McDonald's, sir." Aaron felt his jaw clench. He had trained under his grandmother to believe every guest mattered, that an old man coming in for a biscuit was no different from a critic with a notepad. That spirit, it had vanished. By lunch, the tension between staff was impossible to ignore. Tiana and Kendall whispered behind Reggie's back. Reggie snapped at Charisse, the prep cook, for not keeping the tomatoes cold. Julian flinched every time someone walked past him. It was not just disorganization, it was disconnection. Nobody trusted each other, nobody took pride in the food, and worst of all, nobody seemed to care. Aaron sat there for hours, watching the rhythm of the restaurant falter like a song being played off-key. Every interaction felt transactional. People worked around each other, not with each other. The staff moved like they were all in different plays, reading from different scripts. No warmth, no unity, no soul. At one point, Aaron saw a to-go order slide off the counter and splatter onto the floor. Reggie groaned, but made no move to clean it up. Kendall just stepped over it. Julian finally grabbed a rag and wiped it away. No thanks, no help, just silence. That was when Aaron knew. This was not just about food or timing or customer service. It was about something much deeper, something broken at the core. These people were not lazy. They were disconnected from the mission, from each other, from themselves. He scribbled one sentence in his notebook before standing up to stretch his legs. The food is not the only thing that is cold. By the third day of observing, Aaron noticed someone different in the kitchen. He was young, barely 20, if that, with anxious eyes and hands that trembled when he held the spatula. His name was Malik. Thin build, buzzed hair, and a uniform that looked one size too big. He stood at the edge of the kitchen like he was afraid to take up space. No one greeted him. No one told him where to stand. They had already sized him up before he clocked in. Julian muttered under his breath, "Another newbie? He'll be gone by Friday." Reggie gave him a list of tasks without making eye contact. Cut onions, clean the fryer trays, stay out of the way. Then he turned back to the grill as if Malik had vanished. Malik tried. Really, he did. He washed his hands 3 times before slicing the onions, careful to line everything up. He asked where the gloves were, but was ignored. When he finally found them and returned, the onions were already done. Tiana had rolled her eyes and finished them without a word. No one told Malik where to store the clean trays, so he wandered for 3 minutes before Kendall barked, "You gonna walk around all day or actually do something?" The silence that followed was suffocating, but Malik did not fight back. He just nodded and said, "Sorry, sir." Aaron watched from the side booth with a heavy heart. He could see it in Malik's posture, that tired, guarded stance of someone who had been through systems that taught him to stay small and stay quiet. Malik never raised his voice, never pushed back. Just did what he was told, then waited for someone to correct him, and still, they did. When he refilled the mop bucket without being asked, Reggie scowled. "That water's way too soapy. Redo it." When he offered to help slice the turkey, Cherise said, "No offense, but you're too slow." By the time the lunch rush picked up, Malik had barely spoken 10 words. What no one else knew, what Aaron later learned through a quiet conversation in the alley behind the kitchen, was that Malik was part of a local re-entry program. He had spent 10 months in a halfway house after a mistake he did not like to talk about. He had never worked in food service before, just needed a shot, a routine, a chance. "This is my first real job," Malik had whispered, eyes on the pavement. "I just don't want to mess it up." Aaron did not say much. He just nodded and told him he was doing fine. But what happened next in the kitchen surprised everyone, especially Malik. It was mid-afternoon, right after the shift lull. The prep line was a mess, the trash was full, and most of the staff had either stepped out or were glued to their phones. Malik, trying to be helpful, grabbed a stack of clean plates that no one asked him to carry. Halfway to the dish pit, he tripped. Porcelain shattered across the floor like broken promises. The crash echoed loud enough to freeze the room. Reggie whipped around, furious. Kendall snorted. "Told you all he was not ready." Malik's face went pale. He started picking up the pieces with shaking hands, lips pressed together to stop them from quivering. But before anyone could say another word, Julian, quiet Julian, stepped forward. He crouched beside Malik and said softly but firmly, "You got this." He did not yell. He did not pity. Just those 3 words, steady as a hand on a shoulder. Then he helped him clean. For the first time that day, Malik looked someone in the eye. It was not a dramatic moment. There was no applause, no warm music playing in the background. But Aaron felt something shift. Beneath all the cracks in the foundation, under the layers of fatigue and frustration, there was still something good here. It was small, but it was real, and sometimes all a place needs to be saved is one person willing to care. By Friday morning, the walls could no longer hold the truth. Aaron stood in the alleyway behind the kitchen, watching the sun crawl up behind the old red bricks. The sky was clear, but his heart felt heavy. He had seen enough, heard enough. The place he built with love and memory had drifted far from its roots. He had planned to wait until the end of the week, maybe longer. But something in Malik's quiet persistence, in Julian's unexpected kindness, told him, now is the time. He walked through the back door at 10:02 a.m., not in his apron or disguise, but in the same leather jacket he used to wear the day Ellie's opened. His eyes scanned the kitchen. Cherise was finishing prep. Kendall was checking his phone. Julian leaned on the counter. Malik was already mopping. Aaron stepped onto the line and said, loud enough to freeze the room, "I think it is time we had a talk." Reggie turned first, squinting. "Wait, is that—" Cherise's jaw dropped. Kendall dropped his phone. Malik just stared. Aaron walked to the center of the kitchen and looked at each of them, one by one. No more pretending. No more watching from shadows. "It is me," he said. "Aaron Blake, founder of this place. The man whose name is still printed on every single paycheck you get." A pause. "And I have been here all week." No one spoke. He did not yell. He did not shame them, but the weight in his voice cut deeper than shouting ever could. "I started Ellie's not for profit, not for clout. I started it because my grandmother taught me that food was how you showed love." He tapped the counter beside him. "This counter. She used to roll biscuits here. That window. It was the first place I ever saw a customer cry over a bowl of soup." He looked straight at Reggie. "And now? It is cold service. Dirty trays. Gossip in the walk-in. Half of you do not even look customers in the eye anymore." Kendall bristled. With respect, man, we are underpaid, understaffed, and overworked. What did you expect? Aaron nodded. I expected hard days, but I also expected heart. He turned to Charisse. You used to write handwritten thank you notes on takeout bags. You stopped. She looked down at her shoes. Julian stood still. Guilty, but quiet. Aaron's tone softened. This place was built on second chances. For me. For the people who walk in hungry. For people like Malik. He gestured toward the youngest in the room. Y'all treated him like he was disposable. Like he was in the way, but I watched him work harder, care more, and keep his head up, while most of you barely noticed him. The silence was louder than before. Malik blinked, eyes glassy. Aaron looked around. I did not come back to fire anyone. I came back to see if this place still had a soul. His voice cracked just a little. I almost sold this place last month. Gasps. Charisse shook her head. You were going to shut it down? Aaron nodded slowly. Because it stopped feeling like Ellie's. Like home. He stepped back. But I see now. It is not gone. Just buried. He exhaled, looking around. If you want to stay here, you need to remember why this place matters. Not to me. To the people who walk through that door with $10 and trust us to give them something that feels like care. He gave them a moment to let it sink in. Then he turned and walked back toward the office. Behind him, something happened. Julian stepped forward. He turned to Malik and said, Hey man, you want to work the line with me today? Malik hesitated, then nodded. Charisse pulled out her phone and opened a note. She began rewriting her side work checklist. By hand, and Reggie, still proud, still silent, started organizing the dry goods without being asked. Small things, but real things. Aaron stood in the office doorway and watched them. Through the glass, and for the first time in a long while, he smiled. The next morning, the restaurant felt different. The air was quieter, not heavy, just thoughtful. The kind of quiet that settles over a place right before something important happens. Aaron arrived early. Not in secret this time, not hiding behind a borrowed apron. He walked through the front door like he used to, carrying 2 boxes of fresh pastries from the local bakery. No one asked why. By 9 a.m., every staff member stood in the dining area, uniforms wrinkled, eyes cautious, hearts unsure. Aaron had asked everyone to come in an hour early. No details, just a request. He stood in front of the chalkboard wall where the specials used to be written. Behind him were photos of Ellie, handwritten notes from customers, a framed newspaper article from the opening week 10 years ago. He took a breath and spoke. I want to start with 2 words. Thank you. A pause. Yesterday was hard, not because of confrontation, but because of honesty. And you stayed. You listened. That means something. He walked slowly along the edge of the group. But now comes a choice. He looked each of them in the eye. Julian, Reggie, Malik, Kendall, and finally, Marina. This place cannot survive if it is just a job. It was never meant to be. I know the pay is not glamorous. I know the hours are tough. But this restaurant was built on soul, not shortcuts. So here is what I am offering. He pointed to a small stack of envelopes on the host stand. Inside, these are 2 things. 1, your paycheck through the end of the month, plus a small bonus. And 2, a note with a simple message. You are free to go, no judgment. He let the word settle. But if you stay, really stay, I need more than your time. I need your belief in the food, in the service, in each other. Silence. Then quietly he said, You do not have to decide. Right now, you can take the envelope, step outside, and choose. Julian was the first to move. He grabbed an envelope and stepped out onto the sidewalk. Then Kendall, then Reggie, then Marina, and Malik. They stood outside together, the morning sun casting long shadows over the sidewalk. Inside, Aaron waited. He did not pace. He did not peek. He just sat at the counter and poured a cup of black coffee. 10 minutes later, Julian returned. No envelope in hand. He nodded. "I am in." Aaron smiled. Kendall came next, shrugging. "I might complain, but I am better here than out there." Then Malik, quiet, but proud. "This place gave me a shot. I am not done yet." Reggie came last. No words. Just walked behind the counter and started setting up plates. But Marina, she stayed outside. Aaron stepped to the door and met her there. She was sitting on the bench, envelope unopened in her lap. "You all right?" he asked gently. She nodded. "I am grateful for this place. It helped me when I needed structure. It kept me focused after my sister passed." But she looked at the restaurant, then back at Aaron. "It is not where I grow next. You feel that sometimes, like a branch getting too heavy for the trunk." Aaron did not argue. He sat beside her. "You were one of the first people I hired," he said. "You taught half the kitchen how to slice onions without crying." She laughed. "That was just mint oil." They sat in silence for a few more seconds. Then she stood, extended her hand, and said, "Thank you for reminding us what this place was supposed to be. I hope you find it again." "You helped build it," he replied. She walked away, envelope bowl still in hand, not as an escape, but as a full-circle goodbye. Inside, Aaron returned to the dining room. The people who remained looked different, not in their uniforms, but in their posture. They stood taller, eyes clearer, not because everything was fixed, but because now they had chosen it. The next few weeks did not bring magic. There were no viral videos, no food critics swooping in for redemption stories. Just hard work, quiet, deliberate, and honest. But that was exactly what Ellie's needed. Julian showed up 30 minutes early each day, not because anyone asked, but because he wanted the silverware rolled right, the host station spotless, and the welcome warm. Reggie stopped bringing his phone into the kitchen. He said it distracted him from what mattered. Malik started offering to close on weekends without being asked. Even Kendall, who had once served with the enthusiasm of a DMV clerk, began asking customers how their meals were, and meaning it. Aaron noticed every shift, but he did not hover. He led differently now, less bark, more presence. Sometimes he worked the floor. Other times he just stood by the kitchen pass, watching with quiet pride. One Saturday afternoon, just after the lunch rush, something small happened that meant everything. An older couple walked in, gray-haired, hand in hand. They looked around and smiled. "We used to come here every Sunday after church," the woman said. "Stopped coming after, well, things felt different, but today just felt right again." Julian beamed. "Welcome back." Booth by the window. "Still good?" She touched his arm softly. "You remembered." That same week, a single mom with 2 toddlers sat near the back. One of the kids spilled apple juice everywhere. No one groaned. No one gave her the look. Kendall rushed over with paper towels, knelt down beside the child and whispered, "That is okay, little guy. I spill things too." Aaron watched from the coffee bar. He did not say a word, just quietly slid a warm brownie onto the family's table with 2 spoons. The changes were not loud, but they were real, and the neighborhood noticed. A local teacher started grading papers at table 4 every afternoon. A small poetry group returned to their Thursday night tradition. The tip jar filled faster. Customers stayed longer. They looked each other in the eye again. The hum of conversation returned. Laughter echoed off the walls. Ellie's felt alive. Then one Wednesday evening, during the quiet lull between lunch and dinner, the front door opened, and in walked someone they had not seen since the shake-up. Nathan, the young man who had once stumbled over orders and doubted himself at every step. But he looked different now. His hair was trimmed, his clothes neat, his eyes clearer, shoulders stronger. He held a small to-go bag in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other. Julian spotted him first. "Yo." "Nate?" Nathan smiled, a little nervous but steady. "Hey, I hope it is okay. I just wanted to say thanks." He handed Aaron the paper. It was a letter. Short, typed. "I started work last week," Nathan said. "At a youth center. Same one that helped me last year." I told them about Ellie's, about what it meant. Aaron read the note. At the bottom was one line. "This was more than a job. It gave me a chance to believe in myself again." Aaron folded the paper slowly. "How are you feeling?" Nathan nodded. "Stronger. Like I can finally stand without shaking." Julian clapped him on the back. "You got this, man. You always did." Reggie brought him a lemonade on the house. Kendall gave him a real menu instead of a to-go flyer. The whole staff gathered for a moment, not with pity, but with respect. Because they all remembered how it started. Nathan stayed for 20 minutes. Ate, half a grilled cheese, laughed once, then left. But it meant everything. That night, after the last table cleared and the lights dimmed, Aaron walked into the kitchen. The team was finishing up, sweeping, wiping down, humming along to a Marvin Gaye tune on the speaker. He paused, looked around and said, "Do you feel it?" Kendall raised an eyebrow. "Feel what?" "The soul," Aaron said. "It is back," Reggie grinned. "Took a while, but yeah, I feel it." No one said anything more. They just looked around, the worn wood floors, the mismatched mugs, the photo of Ellie on the back wall, and knew that the restaurant had come home to itself. The night air was cool, the street quiet. Aaron stepped outside, apron slung over his shoulder, hands in his pockets. The evening shift had ended over an hour ago, but he had lingered, just watching the place come back to life, one closing task at a time. Now he stood across the street, looking at the building that had nearly broken him and had somehow brought him back. The neon sign above the door flickered. The E in Ellie's blinked like a heartbeat, soft, uncertain, stubborn. He smiled at it. "You are still trying, huh?" he whispered. The wind carried the faint sound of dishes clinking inside, someone laughing as they wiped down. A counter. This was not the restaurant he had built years ago. It was something new, rougher, warmer, more honest. He was about to turn back toward the door when he saw it, a folded napkin wedged into the frame of the front window. He walked over, plucked it loose. It had been weighed down with a tiny rock, almost missed in the dark. The handwriting was shaky but clear. "Dear Ellie's, I lost my husband last spring. For months I could not bring myself to go anywhere we used to love. Then last week, I saw your lights were back on. I came in. I sat at our table. I ordered his favorite soup. No one knew me, but the waitress smiled like she did. And I realized something. Grief is heavy, but kindness helps carry it. Thank you for being open again." Aaron held the napkin to his chest. It was not about the food. It never had been. It was the way Ellie had greeted everyone like they were her own. The way people came to celebrate, to cry, to breathe. The way the place gave them space when life felt too big. He stepped back, looked at the flickering sign again. A light going out. Used to scare him. Now, it reminded him that even broken things still glow. Behind him, the door opened. Reggie called out, "Boss, you coming back in? We are testing a new dessert." Aaron turned, his eyes still wet, but his smile wide. "Yeah," he said. "Be right there." He took one last glance at the street. at the shadows and stories it held, then walked back inside. Because second chances were not just about business. They were about people, about choosing to show up again, about places that held our messiness and still saved us a seat. And Ellie's. Ellie's had become that place again. If this story moved you, share it. Because somewhere out there someone is quietly wondering if it is too late to fix what they have lost. Let this remind them, it is never too late to walk back in. Whether it is a restaurant, a relationship, a community, or a dream. The truth is, places only survive when people fight for their soul. And people only grow when they are given space, not just rules. Aaron's story is not just about food. It is about what happens when we stop seeing each other, when routine replaces care, when we forget the reason we started in the first place. But it is also about hope, and what happens when one person decides to believe again. So if you have a place like Ellie's in your life, take care of it. And if you do not, maybe it is time to build one. Because culture is not automatic. It is built every single day through small choices, quiet courage, and second chances. Thank you for watching.